the story of Chucky the Killer Doll. The events of the story begin with a manhunt between the cops, one of the murderous criminals called Garles Lee. He is also a murderous and dangerous criminal, and during the chase he is hit by one of the cops' bullets, to fall to a dying earth, and while dying, Garles is able to convey his soul with a magical spell to one of the puppets in the gaming department inside the store, to move his evil soul inside the puppet, which is called the good man's puppet. The store burned him, and during the extinguishment of the fire, a street vendor was able to steal the good man's puppet out of debris and rubble to sell it cheaply to a woman who asked him when she saw the puppet in his hands, and the puppet was only the one to which the spirit of the criminal Garles moved. That lady's son, Andy, had asked his mother to give him the good man's doll as a gift on his birthday. But the lady apologized because she didn't have the price of the game, so once she saw it with the man at a small price. Until I bought it immediately for Andy. That evening, Chucky talks to Andy, tells him his name and commits his first crimes, where he kills Andy's nanny and his mother's girlfriend at home with an iron hammer, then throws it out the window of the house, and when the body is discovered, Andy tells everyone that Chucky did it, and of course no one believes him. The next day, Chucky forced Andy to miss his school and convinced him to take him to Eddie's house. Eddie was a partner of Garles who confessed to the police in the last chase. So Garles decided to retaliate against Eddie by puppet. And indeed Andy went to Eddie's house. Chucky killed him and burned the house down. Of course, the cops found Andy next to Eddie's house. He was arrested despite Andy screaming that Chucky did it, but not believed. Andy was placed in a psychiatric facility. After Andy was placed in the psychiatric hospital, his mother returned home alone sad, but soon Chucky attacked her and she was alone, having checked the doll after I talked to her, and found no batteries. Karen informed an investigator of her friends, named Nurse. I told him what happened and that when she tried to burn the puppet, she attacked her hard. Of course the detective didn't believe her. But he was suddenly attacked while driving, with Chucky attacking him in an attempt to eliminate him. But he survived this sudden attack by shooting the puppet. Number 5. Chucky discovered that the investigator's injury to him was bleeding blood. So he went to the person who taught him magic and knew him himself. He asked him not to bleed, and told him that the soul would gradually turn into flesh and blood. And you will feel everything that afflicts her. But it will not grow up, and after a while it will become completely human. Garles asked him to know how to transfer his soul from the doll to someone else. But the man refused to tell him. Chucky tortured him for a long time, until the guy told him he had to go to the first person he really knew, baby Andy. Karen and the detective joined Chucky. They came to the dying sorcerer. He tells them what happened as well as how they got rid of Chucky. He told them the doll was all plastic but the heart was completely human. If they wanted to get rid of him, they had to hit the heart. Chucky had arrived at the sanatorium where Andy was detained. He kept chasing him, and some of the child's attending doctors were killed. Andy finally escapes and heads for his house. But Chucky catches up with him again. before Karen and the detective arrived. Andy kept trying to defend himself. Chucky hits him on the head with the baseball bat. He loses consciousness and starts to read some spells in order to complete the transition to Andy's body. But both Karen and the detective are catching up with him, so Chucky could hit the detective. But the mother and her son succeeded in putting Chucky inside the stove to burn, and she goes without paying attention to Chucky, who is still alive, to help the investigator and discover that Chucky is still alive, to end that terrifying chase, where the investigator fires shots into Chucky's heart, disposing of him forever.